Anybody who walks into my bar, I'm going to treat them the same way as I would treat you when you walked into the bar, because that person may be the next Robin. Okay, so I want to build up my clientele as much as possible, and I always want to exceed their expectations. If you're a tourist, if you're from out of town or whatever, I want them to say, you know what, we went to Sparks, we ate at the bar, and we had a great experience. And you know what, next time they're in town, they might be in for a week, you may see them at least 1 or 2 times.
All right, I'm really excited about this show. 2 of my great friends, Mike and Ron, the hospitality dudes. An Australian and a Staten Islander walk into a bar, then what the hell happens? Okay, these 2 guys in my mind are the dynamic duo. I call them Mr. and Mr. Hospitality. You heard that right, Mr. and Mr. I've never ever met 2 more inspiring, friendly and hospitable dudes that make me feel $1 million every time I walk into the Sparks Steakhouse. They are true professionals that run the bar at Sparks, a New York institution opened in 1966. The joint has some surprising elements of why it's infamous, and also why it's famous, and also why the food's not always about steak. I can't imagine 2 better hospitality veterans to guide us through the history of New York, through 9/11, Sandy, the global financial crisis, and now COVID-19 pandemic. Here I present my 2 favourite hospitality gents, Mike and Ron. All right, you 2. This is I've been looking forward to this show for I don't know how long. My business partner, Jason, is having MOFO. Is it MOFO? Or no, FOMO. I don't know what MOFO is, but it's fear of missing out. He was so upset that he couldn't be here with you guys. So Ron, Mike, the first question I wanted to ask both of you before we get into the history of you two, how many times has your wife begged you to go out and leave the house? I mean, was she really happy for you to come here today, Mike?
Yes.
Yes.
In fact, before I left the house, she called me. She said, "When are you leaving?"
Yeah.
I said, "I'm going to leave in a couple of minutes. Go see the boys."
What about now? What about now?
Well, now, yeah, you know what? It's I'm not used to being home.
Yeah, yeah.
Being in the restaurant business yourself. I'm usually at Sparks 50, 60 hours a week.
Yeah.
I'm working nights. She works days. So usually I get up in the morning, see her for a cup of coffee. She goes to work, and
that's how the whole relationship. That's why you love each other, because you didn't see each other very much.
Tell you what, 36 years. Tuesday coming up.
Wow.
And did you finish your veranda? Apparently, you had to get that veranda done.
I got it all done.
This is a very classic conversation right now. The wives want them out. They want the veranda done and get the fuck out of the house.
Well, I'm on the opposite end because my kids are young.
Yeah.
So my wife says, "You're not leaving me home with the kids, are you? You're not leaving."
Obviously, you're an Australian. You're a Staten Island guy. Staten Island guy, an Australian walking into a bar. You've been at Sparks for how long?
This would be my 6th complete year.
6 complete, and you?
2 years.
2 years. So, I've said this before, right? So I walk into Sparks. I always love this idea. Maybe because you actually make me feel like Eddie Murphy kind of walking into an audience, and I walk into that bar, the place is jumping and it's jam-packed, and I'm just like, yep. And you both are like, Mr. Hospitality, Mr. Hospitality. Get out of the way. This guy's sitting down here and we have a little fun, right? So how's this city shaped your view on life, been working in Sparks? Have you seen something different from your past? So I'll ask you, Ron, first. So working in the bar there, does it make you love people more or less, or what does it feel like?
It's a classier spot than, most other places and places that I'm used to, actually, because, what does an Aussie guy know about class at all?
We know a little bit.
Well, he gets to work with me 3 days a week, so it's okay.
It's definitely upmarket, upscale, and I enjoy it. I mean, as a worker, you can put on many different hats. So if you're in a sports bar or a down market environment, that's what you got to do, and that's how you behave. But I enjoy the classy approach and the conversations that are lively and somewhat intelligent. And
leave me out of this.
Well, actually, I was going to say, but then I get to speak to the bartender, and it's not so intelligent anymore. So you stomped on my line.
Well, it's almost the same as what Ron was saying. We have a great clientele. They come in from all over the country, all over the world.
Yep.
And it's a kick because people that come in on business, you'll see them probably once a month, once every 6 weeks, and you know that you're doing the right thing because out of thousands of restaurants you could come to in Manhattan,
Yep.
You'll come into Sparks and look at the maitre d' and say, I'm going to the bar. I'm going to sit with Mike and Ron. And, it makes us feel good that they want to spend their evening with us.
Right. And for the people that haven't been there, there's a room that seats about 5,000 or something like that.
15,000.
15,000.
We have total capacity, I think, about 700.
Right. And I've been in there once when you were doing 700 and said, I forgot to tell you, I want to be at 8. I don't think I did that, but I've never eaten in the dining room, always in the bar, right? And I don't think I've ever set foot in the dining room, which is, what's the manager's name again?
Abdul.
Abdul. And he always screams at me. And as soon as he sees me walking in, doesn't quite know it's me. Then when I'm at the door, he looks at me disappointed. He goes, you don't want to sit in the dining room, do you?
or he'll look at me and say, why did you set up 2 spots at the bar for? I said, Rob is coming down with Jason.
Yeah, exactly. Jason being my business partner. And then, the place is an institution, 1966, right? And, as hospitality veterans, which you guys both are, I was talking to a couple of bar people, and you don't just do bar work there. You're also serving food there. So you're basically going to know how to do the whole cocktail program, and then you've also got to know the whole menu. And often I find it's kind of like chefs that can cook but can't add, and the other way around. And with bar people, they're great at drinks but they're terrible at food, or the other way around, right? So that's a little bit of an art. Plus that bar is a dispense bar for the entire restaurant. So now we're talking about 2 of you guys behind the bar, and swap shifts and have other people there. You've got to know all the drinks. You've got to dispense to the bar, dispense to the 15,000 seats you've got, and you've got to serve the menu in there. Do you ever feel the crunch? Do you
Well, you know what it is? Ron and I, we feed off each other extremely well. Mm-hmm. If Ron sees that I'm getting extremely busy and he has a second to get away from the service bar, he'll come in and bail me out a little bit.
Sure.
And vice versa. Sometimes he'll be bailing me out.
Right.
All of a sudden the service bar will be busy, so I'll jump in. I'll say, let me go cover him over there.
Right.
No matter what.
Relationship.
Yeah, we try so nobody suffers. The floor doesn't suffer.
But this is a really interesting conversation for a younger generation, because we've been doing this for a long time. And, we talked about this just before the interview, was talking about the idea of reading signals, right? Reading people's faces without saying something. And I always would walk in there and, I would walk in and I'll have my 10 minutes of yabba, and you've still got to do some work, so I can't hold you up. And you've got to find that fine art between the client that knows they want to have a conversation but can't hold you at the bar for half an hour. And then, for me, I might put my earphones in and call some workplaces and whatever, and you just magically know what I want. And it's not really magic, it's really perspective, perspective, right? So you always watch what I'm doing, you watch what I'm doing, and I see that with all the clients that go in there with you guys. You kind of have a sixth sense, right?
Yes and no. Yes, because a lot of our guests that do come in, we see them quite often.
Right.
I know you, I know Jason and stuff like that. So I know that you're going to have your Martini. After you have your Martini, after you tell me to shake the shit out of it, okay?
That means cold.
And we'll fill it up to the top for you. That.
Extra chilled.
Extra chilled.
Well, we know we got to get to your Martini in a second, but we'll talk. So we'll do the Martini,
and then I know after that you guys usually switch to maybe a Chardonnay, have a couple appetizers, have a nice bottle of Cabernet with your dinner, and hopefully it's a great bottle so I can have a glass, and that's it.
Never if it's white.
But I'm going to interject. A lot of this comes with experience. So, as you work in the industry is made up of repeat customers. That's what really makes a place, is bringing your customers back. In my view, my Amstel Lights are going to taste the same as the guy down the street.
Sure.
Why do they come back? They come back because they feel warm and welcome and nice. Mine's, of course, going to taste much nicer than Mike's.
I don't know why you're drinking Amstel Light. We'll talk about that after the show.
Yeah,
Bad idea. Well, you're Australian. You're supposed to be running the flag with us. We don't do light beer.
Be that as it may. So that it comes with an experience. So in trying to solicitate or I don't want to say beguile, but trying to seduce a customer to come in again and again, you make sure you pay attention to that customer the first few times they're in there, make them feel warm and welcome so that they know. And the really cool customers, because, we have good customers as well as, I suppose, mediocre and, I'm not going to say poor because we don't, but we average ones, are the ones that understand that in the middle of a conversation, you might have to cut it off because someone else has come in the door.
And you've got to pirouette out of that. You can't just go, hey, I'm busy and I got to go. You've got to be polite. That's why I'm not working behind the bar, because I'd just be like, shut the fuck up, all right? I got to go do something.
But again, that's experience, and I don't know if you want to say art form.
It's an art form.
Well, part of the art form as well is, Ron, he'll be there in the afternoon sometimes. and he'll meet a great couple that came in. All of a sudden, they'll say,
Right.
"Oh, we live down the block. We just came over from another restaurant. We love being here." When I come in that day, Ron will give me the whole rundown.
Right.
Give me a heads up saying, "Well, these people are really nice. They're ordering expensive bottles of wine. They're
Yep.
eating good. They live down the block. This way, he'll bring me over, introduce me to them, so they know
Yeah.
me. They'll know me as well, and I would do it to him as well. Just way,
Right.
we're trying
Like
to,
we in the industry call it a handover, right? Like a proper handover.
It's a proper handover.
Yep.
And that's how we've built up our business so well. We have a great bar business.
But I had this discussion with a couple of 30-year-olds recently, and I don't have a problem with 30-year-olds. I'm really happy. Yeah, not yet anyway. But
When you get to that stage, let us know.
no, but they were talking to me about something, and they said to me, isn't everybody a VIP? And I said, to be a VIP, it has to be earned. Now, in most hospitality circles or most world circles, you think, well, if I'm Eddie Murphy, for example, or I'm, somebody famous, I'm going to get looked after. But what I was trying to explain to them, I said, in order for you to become a VIP in a restaurant, it's not about how much you spend. It's how often you frequent that place and how much you communicate with the team, right? So, to earn a seat at the bar when it's packed and get 2 seats at the bar has nothing to do with cash. There's plenty of people rich in this city, and I ain't one of them. But it's coming back and being polite to the staff, obviously tipping well when service is great, communicating and whatever, right? So, because I always find the idea of a VIP is earning the respect of the team. And that's what I always feel like with you guys. Do you guys agree with that?
Well, in a way, but on the other hand is anybody who walks into my bar,
Yep.
I'm going to treat them the same way as I would treat you when you walked into the bar.
Yep.
Because that person may be the next Robert.
Yep.
Okay, so I want to build up my clientele as much as possible, and I always want to exceed their expectations. If you're a tourist, if you're from out of town or whatever, I want them to say, you know what, we went to Sparks, we ate at the bar,
Yeah.
and we had a great experience.
Right.
And you know what, next time they're in town, they might be in for a week, you may see them at least 1 or 2 times.
Yeah, but that's how you build industry, right?
Absolutely. And that's a repeat business that we were talking about of coming back.
So you guys have been through some shit. All right, so let's talk about that. So I've got in a row. I know you necessarily weren't in Manhattan at the time, but we've got 9/11, Sandy, the global financial crisis, and now COVID-19. So you were both in the city.
COVID what?
COVID-19, yeah.
What's that?
Hopefully this might come out in 3 or 4 weeks, this show, and hopefully this thing will be over. But we keep saying that, and that was 7 months later, right? I can't imagine what's next, like a cat, a large cat with laser eyes walking through the city. I mean, who knows what's coming? Godzilla. So both of you were here 9/11?
Yes.
Right.
No, 9/11, I was in Brooklyn.
You were in Brooklyn. Well, you were in New York, right? So, what was I'll ask you, Ron, what was the energy like being in Australia? And our Prime Minister was stuck here at 9/11. Yep. What was it like and where were you?
I was in Manhattan. I was not in the restaurant industry. I was actually in the film industry, and we were going to start shooting a film, I think, on that Friday.
Right.
Because it was a Tuesday. And it got cancelled, and in fact, to this date, it has never been made. But
because you were a cameraman, right?
I was a cameraman. So that was then in Manhattan, eerie, quiet.
Were you living in Manhattan?
Yeah, I was living Upper West Side, 74th Street. Eerily quiet, was very subdued, and I ended up volunteering down in the pit. And I was doing equipment and other menial jobs during,
Wow.
because I was out of work. So I was like, okay, I'm out of work. Let me
help.
Let me give back to the city that has supported me.
Holy shit, that's incredible.
So that was, and I worked there from September, I think, 13 or 14 till January 1st. That was my last day.
Wow.
So I worked down there, and I did have a part-time job doing accounting, bookkeeping at the time, and they gave me a lot of leeway, and it was amazing that you'd come from the pit at 7 a.m. after doing an all-nighter, and everybody was so polite and nice.
Yeah.
It only lasted about a week. But,
humanity.
But it was great. For that week on the subway, someone say, "Here, let me swipe you through."
Right.
And I've got your token, or you know,
Right.
and no, you're okay with this, and
So
people
post-
would give
so-
me seats. It's like, wow, am I that old? You know?
Well, they just heard your weird accent. And they said, "Oh, we feel sorry for him." You know.
But I think they could have saw my drawn out face.
So the city afterwards, I had a chat with David Rabin, who's a famous bar guy, and he was talking about what the nightlife was like after 9/11, because he actually said in our last interview that it was really weird because nobody wanted to go out and be seen celebrating nor celebrate because the country was going through what New York was going through. Everybody was feeling the pain across the world. Then we'll move forward, and we're now at Sandy. And I live down near the Seaport. I brought up a few interviews ago. I just moved down Seaport kind of financial district, and they've got the barricades up there for the water. So Sandy, where were you?
I was in Staten Island. I was managing a restaurant in Staten Island at the time.
Right.
And I was actually one of the people who got hit. We had 7 feet of water in our basement.
7 feet.
7 feet. Yeah. My son lives there. My son was living down there with my daughter.
Wow.
And he was working down Wall Street. He was trying to save his computer, his work clothes, and everything else. And I'm yelling at him, saying, "Mike, you got to get out of there. You got to get out of there. The water is just building up, building up."
Wow.
And finally, the water built up at the basement door so much it blew the door off the hinges.
Really?
Where he was.
Yeah, we got him out by then. He was out by then. He was safe. He was okay. Just that the water was literally up to his waist.
Wow.
While I was yelling at him, saying, "Mike, you got to get out of there. You're gonna get hurt. You know, whatever. You know, you get trapped down there." And when I saw that door blow off the basement hinges, I'm like, "Oh my God!" The best part was, when I said the best part is that it was 5 o'clock the next morning. We stayed in the house. 5 o'clock the next morning, I went to look outside and check out the damages.
Yeah.
And I walked down to where the basement area was, and there was no water down there.
Really?
Apparently, the sewer traps in the house, when the water receded, must have caused a suction, sucked all the water out. The refrigerators were turned over. The couches,
it would have been a
everything was gone.
mess.
You can see the water line on the top of the ceiling.
Because a lot of
over
people don't realize,
Yeah.
even me, until I lived here, how damaging that hurricane
there. Yeah,
was.
tremendous.
Even in Manhattan, I think everybody saw because a lot of people then, when they look from another part of the world, they kind of look at New York being Manhattan only, and the other boroughs that took a lot of damage, and then down the financial district was flooded underwater, and there were a bunch of people down there. I think the Paris Cafe was under like 3 or 4 feet of water, a very famous place. Now we move forward, and we've got these idiots in the banks that, you know, caused a lot of trouble. 1 minute we're all partying, we've got 19 houses we can't afford, right?
That's the reason.
Yeah, that's the reason. We've got 19
exactly
houses,
right.
right? We can't afford. We're spending our 9 credit cards. We're like, life's good. And these idiots. And then overnight, this whole thing, you know, Lehman obviously started the ripple effect. I'm curious to what did the restaurants look like the minute that collapse started? Not necessarily months later, but the minute that was announced. Because I remember I was sitting in a car in Australia with somebody, a friend of mine, and he lost his entire wealth that day that he'd retired and built. And I was going to lunch with him. And he just sat there and he just looked at me and he just went, eh. And we went to lunch and we got him drunk, of course. What was that like those 3 or 4 days after it? Where were you both?
I was back in Staten Island again.
Yep.
It was very somber, you know, because people lost a lot. You
Sure.
know, friends and family
Right.
lost their jobs, lost their savings.
Yep.
You know, whatever they had invested in the company themselves, especially if you were with Bear Stearns or
Yep.
Lehman or whatever. You lost a lot. You know, it was sad. You felt bad for a lot of people that you work all your life for your retirement, and all of a sudden you're
Boom.
40 years
It's all
old,
gone.
45, and you're starting all over again.
100%. And where were you?
I was actually just moving over to Jersey
Yep.
from Manhattan. I was actually working in a sports bar, and we had people walking in virtually daily, 3 or 4 to
Yep.
have a job. And these were all Wall Street guys
Yep.
who were looking for
Anything.
anything. And we had nothing to give them. And I felt really bad because I know, you know, these
course.
guys are
Well, can I jump
They're
in for a
human beings.
second?
skilled
They're
people.
human beings.
Let me jump in for a second. Well, every time there's a disaster that happens,
Yep.
everybody turns to the restaurant business. Unfortunately, this
Except
time
now.
we can't even turn to it for ourselves.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
You
really
know,
interesting.
That's the sad part.
that's
You
a
know,
good point.
you know, with all the restaurants that aren't going to make it right now, which I feel terrible about. You know,
Yep.
people open up restaurants, they throw their life savings into them.
Yep.
All of a sudden, you have no place to turn.
Sure.
Okay, what I think is, you know, the small are going to be gone,
Yep.
and the big are going to get bigger.
Yeah.
You know,
Because it was interesting as I brought this up the other day with a friend of mine. There's an old movie called Demolition Man. So if you're under 30, you probably haven't seen it. But the rest of us had. It's a really bad Sylvester Stallone movie. I love him, but that movie's not great. And there's a scene in there, and he's with the actress Sandra Bullock, I think, in a car.
Yep.
And he comes out of a coma, And he says, "Are you serious?" And she said, "Yes, every restaurant's a Taco Bell," right? Which was kind of a metaphor to when I was talking about this to somebody recently. We were chatting about the idea that if all the corporations run the restaurants, that's actually what's going to happen at some point, right? Now, it sounds unnatural for people to say that, to think that, but if us all being in this industry and know how slim the margins are, how all of a sudden you can go from doing 700 for dinner to doing 200 for dinner, and then all of a sudden you have a full house to a half-empty house based on a crisis. And New York has had a stream of different crises, whether it's a blizzard or it's a car bomb or it's a whatever. And there's always been this incredible New York resilience that I love so very much about this city. So the attitude afterwards, right now, and we're going to get into some fun stuff because we kind of went into the dark side of the moon for a second, only because I know there's a lot of people in the industry that are in pain right now. And I you guys are always, we've just had a massive laugh when we came in here. You're always inspiring to me about this industry. What do you think's going to happen now?
I'll tell you the truth. I don't think the restaurant industry will ever be the same.
Really?
Yeah. Once you have to do your social distancing, wear your mask and stuff like that, unless they come up with a vaccine that says, all right, you know what, guys, we could go out and party again. Look what's happening to the UK right now.
Yeah.
They closed it down again yesterday.
What do you think about this Russian vaccine? You think it's vodka?
I think we should take it first. How's that?
Well, you know me. I mean, and I like a vodka martini, and all my staff hate me because I don't have a gin in it. So
well,
I'm good.
They say that vitamin D helps you with the COVID-19.
Right.
So throughout the whole summer, I was drinking martinis and laying in the sun.
See, this is a typical hospitality trait.
That was, I think I made it through okay.
Typical fucking hospitality trait. Spruik alcohol as a solution to everything, right? So
great disinfectant.
So what's his?
I think I even sent you a picture one night.
You did. You sent me these pictures, and I was like, and I always, because you have customer. You said you had a customer that texting you about your famous martinis, right? And I'm like, you are known for both of you actually, but you are known for because I went from dirty gin martinis to like a vodka cold with a lemon twist, and I don't even like saying lemon twist because this sounds Shirley Temple, but you would always make me a really cold martini, and you would say, and I would sit at the bar and somebody else would have one, and you go, this is a lean over, and they'd look and they go, why? And I go, because you can't pick it up because you get it right to the top. And there's a real art to that because you actually fill it right to the top, but there's nothing left in the shaker. And it irritates the shit out of me that you never have anything left in the shaker. This is always perfect. And so during COVID, I had a Sparks night at home. I was like, I'll just pretend Mike's here and I'll get it. Oh, I don't have a shaker, right? So I went and got a shaker. And of course, being a restaurant guy, I get this heavy vintage glass thing. It was only $20, and I was like, I didn't realize that actually the heavier the shaker, the worse. I'm a terrible cocktail maker for the record. I might be a good chef, but terrible cocktail maker. So I get this vintage glass shaker at home. I'm shaking the shit out of this thing. I make a martini, the first one, half empty. The second one, warm. The third one, shit comes out of the shaker. I'm like, I'm tapped out. But that's your signature, right? Like a super, super, super cold martini.
You know what? Super cold martini. The difference between leaving a lip on the top of a martini and filling it up is really nothing. Okay? This way you have nobody complains that you didn't fill up my drink. You know what? God. Lean over, take the first sip, and don't bother me.
Well, but just remember, the first time I met you, I remember going in there and I was like, I haven't had a drink for like a week. I'll have a couple of martinis. In a normal restaurant, a couple of martinis, you're good to go. The problem you're not sort of mentioning is it's a 4-ounce glass, right? So I went in there and I was like 2 martinis in. I was like, I'm fucking really a bit pissed already, Like, what's your drink of choice?
To drink or to make?
Both.
Look, to drink, I'm a gin and tonic guy.
Which gin?
Gin. Actually, I like Boodle's gin.
Oh, that's good gin.
It's not top of the line.
No.
I happen to like Boodle's gin. It's a very, very smooth, slightly aromatic, not too fruity, not too heavy gin. Yeah, like
too
not
fruity,
too fruity,
aromatic.
Well, what I did put deodorant on today, because this is only audio, you can't tell.
I know for the audience, Mike's a red wine drinker, and that's it. But I'd like to ask you both, what's the drink that you absolutely fucking hate making?
That's a good question.
Because sometimes
lemon drop martini. Do you want sugar on it on the rim? Yes, I do.
Oh no. First swear word I've ever heard out of Mike's mouth.
That doesn't bother me so much. I do like making the old fashions that we make at Sparks.
Yeah, but
I never used to like doing it, but since Sparks, it's like
we have it down to a science.
Yeah,
we do have it. This is funny. Ron and I make fun of it all the time. or joke about it all the time. An average restaurant might make 1 or 2 old fashions in a night.
Right.
Okay, we made 50 one night.
Yeah.
You know what?
No. I'm going to correct you.
No. Ron
One bartender
Ron made
made
50. Mike does only 1. I told you that.
Mike did 12. Trevor did about 16. I did 50.
Yeah, because you guys have got a little battle going on that I found out about, and so there's a bit of an argument going on. It's very hard to find anything that you guys argue about. Anyway, but apparently there's an argument about the bitters you used. Are we talking about the Augusta bitters?
Oh yes.
Yeah, he's got a bit of a beef with you about this.
Yeah. We have all the, we got our own little thing going on. I like the Paychords.
Right.
I'm a classic guy. I like Angostura.
We're talking about the bitters that go in lots of drinks, and for classic lemon, lime, and bitters. But there's a tiny bit of alcohol in there.
Now
so
you say lemon, lime, and bitters. That's something that in America kind of doesn't exist.
What are the main drinks that you put in? I don't know. I'm not a cocktail guy. I wouldn't
know.
know.
But
old fashions and Manhattans.
But
right.
have you heard of someone ordering lemon, lime? You probably
bitter
have.
lemon years ago. They
Bitter lemon.
So
lemon, lime, and bitters is basically club soda, bitters, and then a little dash of Rose's lime juice.
So what bitters do you actually have in there?
We have both.
So do you compromise?
Well,
that's not even controversial. For fuck's
usually
sake.
Ron's there when the guy's taking the order, right? So he'll order his one time, he'll order mine one time, whatever. We just have different preferences.
So that's a nice way of working. It's
that
actually quite romantic. Get a room, you guys. So listen.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on. He likes the Yankees. I'm a Mets fan. So
Ron.
I'm sorry.
I'm with Mike now.
Obviously, my partner over here likes pain.
Yeah, he does. He loves
yeah. Listen, I'm a long-suffering Mets fan.
You should be. It's like almost who in Australia would be like that? Richmond? I don't know. The football team, the Americans don't like that. So, that makes sense. You're a Richmond fan, you're a Mets fan. I'm a Yankees guy. I'm with him.
I'm the only Aussie Mets fan I know.
You're the only Mets fan I know. Kidding. So, funny thing is that a lot of people know Sparks for its steak, obviously, and it's been around 1966, I think. And you taught me very early on, that I should never over order. So you always just I don't even think you take all my food orders because I usually go, I want all this, and I just get what you think I should have because you're like, you don't need 18 clams, 2 steaks, and some lamb chops. But you actually taught me that Sparks has got a little secret. It's not always about the steak.
Lamb chops.
Lamb chops.
Lamb chops are phenomenal.
Right.
And I'm not a lamb eater myself.
Yep.
I'm going by what the guests tell me.
Yeah.
Okay. And people say, "How's your lamb?" I tell them the truth. They say everybody who has a lamb over here says it's the best they ever had.
Yeah.
It's Colorado lamb. It's phenomenal. You get 3 double chop. 3.
Yeah, which you split for us.
Yeah. Well, we're butterflying for you guys.
You butterfly because we're feminine, and but you as an Aussie, do you agree with it? Because we love our lamb, right?
The lamb is excellent.
Yeah.
Don't go past the veal chop too.
Yeah.
I mean, if you haven't never been to Sparks, there's only 2 things you have to try.
Yep.
The steak.
Yep.
One or the other.
Yep.
Right? And then if you've come several times and if you enjoyed the sirloin and the fillet, then you go into the veal chop or the lamb chop.
And we also probably have the best live lobster you've had.
But you also, what's really interesting is that you got me onto the seafood there, and I would end up making my way up to Midtown to have the you always have wild salmon, which I'm a big wild fish guy. I'm not a fan of farmed fish, but whether it's Chilean sea bass or the wild salmon, there's a lot to choose from. It's really hard not to go there regularly, so I kind of get all that. So I'm going to ask this, right? So 66. What year was it? It was 80.
1985.
You knew I was going to ask.
I knew exactly where you were
going. Mob boss.
I'm a Staten Islander.
Okay.
Mr. Castellano.
I wasn't alive.
All right. So for yeah, that's such a lie.
He's ducking behind the bar.
So if you're listening, first of all, Ron's lying. Second of all, 1985.
Don't let this buff buddy fool you.
1985. Ron was 46. Mob boss Paul Castellano. He was in charge of the Gambino family.
Correct.
And he got shot out the front because he didn't pay his check, or he complained about his steak.
When I mentioned the tourist, the first words every time we have a tourist that walks into the restaurant, they said, "You know what we're going to ask?" I said, "1985." I said he tried to walk out on his bill, and the boss caught him outside.
I saw something on social media a while back, and there was a couple of dudes that were putting themselves where he was and having the car door open and doing digital social media out the front of Sparks midnight and lying on the ground.
They filmed the series Billions.
Right, you've had a lot of
Yeah,
films.
yeah.
You've had a lot of films in there, and what you had Billions. Who else?
Well, Billions is they're one of the guys that they refilmed.
Yep.
Yeah,
Paul
but-
Giamatti was laying in the street
I'm
like
sorry,
Paul Castellano.
but-
Did you just give it away that he got shot?
On a technicality, because as a filmmaker, they got the wrong door, because in 1985,
Right.
Sparks wasn't as big as it is now.
Right.
So it's the other access door that had the awning that was the event.
You're being very anal about this. I don't really think it matters. Either way, he's dead. And I think Mike just gave away one of the next series of Billions because nobody knew that. But we gave it out. That's fine. So, so Ron tells me, Mike, you've got two loves. And one of them, neither of them are your wife. And I've met your wife, and she's incredible. I have no idea why she loves you, but she's a classic, beautiful woman. Your car.
My car. I love
Your
my
car. You love your
my
car. You're a Mercedes aficionado. And the stock market.
I love the stock market.
What can you love about the stock market right now?
I love the pain.
That's probably why you work in restaurants. Fuck.
I can do the same with a hammer and a toe, but
Right.
you know.
It's just, you know what? Since I work nights, I have a lot of time on my hands during the day. And since it's not pool season anymore, what do you do during the day? I watch the ticker go by. I'm not a what you call a daily trader. I'm not
Right.
a day trader.
Right.
You know, long-term holds and different things.
Yeah.
But I enjoy it.
I liked how you said earlier on you closed the pool, and he was like, he has a pool in his backyard. He's closed the pool officially in his backyard. It's like as a sign comes up, no more visitors, the pool is shut. But one of your rituals, which I used to love, is you don't drink at work, and then you have some dinner, and then you get in your car, you drive home. It's a convertible, so you put the top down. So you're doing a bit of a Sinatra move or like a Tony Bennett on the way home, right? You get home, you always pretend you're going to have a glass of wine. You walk down to the cellar, you say, and you come up with a bottle of wine, and you go, I always finish it. And summer's always, you seem happier and browner.
And I'll tell you the truth. I'm always happy.
Right, you are. That's one of the things I love about both of you. When I come into the restaurant, you put me in such a great mood, and then I always want to I dragged my guys in there a few times, right?
Absolutely,
and I'm like, you just need to see what real hospitality people are like. Always happy. Stop complaining about your millennial lives. Shut the fuck up and look at these two guys, right? They're happy.
You know what? I have to say one thing. Ron and I, we don't bring our personal stuff to work.
Yeah.
When I walk in, I know Ron's there. It's like, oh, all right, we're gonna have a busy night tonight, but it's gonna go nice and smooth, and we might have a good time in between. Depends who shows up. If you and Jason come down, we can, we have somebody to bullshit.
Yep.
If we're not too busy, obviously, But it's a nice feeling that you have guests that are in the restaurant and you enjoy having them there.
Sure.
And you have a partner you can count on, and you're having a good time.
This is kind of like Top Gun, right?
The thing is,
Who's goose?
the customers actually feed off of
Absolutely,
Right.
100%.
what they see the two guys behind the bar getting along so well, everything's getting done. They're sort of getting into the conversation,
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
It's a marriage. I mean, no wonder your wives want you to go to work. What about you? What's your ritual when you get home? We know Ron goes home and pretends to drink a glass of wine and sits by his pool with it, whether it's open,
Mike
whether it's
does.
open or closed.
Mike does.
What's your ritual?
Look, I got kids, young kids, family life, so
But they're in bed by the time you get home.
mostly, yeah. So I rarely drink. I mean, COVID aside, whereas I've picked
Become
it
a
up
full-fledged alcoholic.
6,000%. But no, I go home and probably watch some Netflix or catch up on reading. Rarely.
So you just sort of wind down really calmly.
I wind down. I also wind down on the way home. So that's already a kind of a.
That's why you two
wind
guys
down.
look really good. So you don't go to some dive bar and sit there till 5 a.m. and cry yourself to sleep.
No.
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 Okay. So he has a beef with you.
I do.
No, he has a beef with you.
Oh,
Mike,
okay.
if you can't see, you're not watching this. Mike has a little beef with Ron. You have a beef with him about the bitters, right?
The bitters, oh, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Well, he has
I
a
have
little
a
bit
better
of beef.
beef.
He has a better one. He's
have a
like,
better beef.
so anyway, I'm going to get this story wrong, but apparently you, in the middle of service, one night was like, hey, I really need these dates off. And there's one night of the year that every fucking restaurateur hates with a passion. We hate working it. We hate doing it. It never makes money. We're busy. We work twice as hard.
Valentine's Day.
Right. Right?
I know.
And you asked for it. You got him vulnerable because you were basically played him like a violin. You got him vulnerable. It was busy. You said, I need these dates
I
off.
did?
He didn't
Oh.
click.
Classic.
Usually, no, it's like 3 months in advance. Mike,
Right.
I didn't need this date off.
And you don't even know what day it is today.
Ron, no problem. You know what?
Yeah.
I got your back. Don't worry about
Yeah.
it. I'll cover for you, right? And then as we're getting closer to the week, I'm like, this motherfucker. It's fantastic. I got 900 reservations. I'm missing a bartender.
Both years I've done it. It just happens to be my anniversary.
Oh, yeah.
So my wife and I got
bullshit. So for the people listening, Valentine's night is basically two romantic people that probably don't even know each other, and they all come in and they basically take up a table where they're not usually drinking, they're not trying to have fun, they're awkward. Our staff have to work 5 times harder.
They only go out twice a year.
They go twice a year.
Valentine's Day and New Year's Eve.
Mm-hmm. The tips are terrible for staff, and that's the nature of a business. You know, to make tips to live, right? So, anybody has Valentine's night, and we work twice as hard because they're all twos. So now we're going to do 7 million people for dinner just to break even. So anyway, that's that beef.
But
I think we could
also
call
Mother's Day
right.
is a big day. So the night,
Mother's Day not so bad because everybody kind of loves their mums, right? But these kids, they go out, nobody knows who they are. They just met. They're at Valentine's. Let's call it a truce, right? You don't get Valentine's night off anymore, and you have both bidders.
Let's hope we're back by February because we're working this year.
Yeah, you better be working.
And you know what's going to happen? His wife is sending him into work.
Yeah. She doesn't want. She'll be out so happy on her anniversary on her own. She'll be like, "Thank God he's doing a split shift."
That's great.
I had him for 7 months. Go to work.
Now I'll be sleeping on your couch.
Exactly. So you've had some. I remember one night I was in there. J-Lo was coming out of there. Who's the famous people that have been in and out of Sparks? I mean, I know there's endless, but when you were both there.
Well, that night that you were there.
Stream.
Yeah, that was J-Lo and A-Rod came in that night.
What about you? Who else? Who have you looked after?
At Sparks or in general?
Sparks.
Well, I looked after J-Lo's bodyguard, so
he's trying to find some pictures.
I usually take pictures.
We had Billy Joel on his 50.
No, his 75th birthday.
75th
we did a party.
Billy Joel's
we did it first. He did the
75.
concert at the Garden that night, and they did the party by us afterwards.
Do you remember those days when all the musicians used to do that? They would have concerts and then they would come to a restaurant after dinner. Feels like that tradition's kind of a little bit out of the wind unless they're old. You know, like you look after Elton John in Australia a lot. He would have Cristal in our cellar for every time he came and toured in Australia, and then he would come 6 nights in a row. And my brother's restaurant, the Latin, which wasn't a Latin restaurant, it was an Italian restaurant in Melbourne, and he would come 6 nights in a row. Elton John sit on table 1 on his own after his show and drink 2 bottles of champagne. In the days when he was drinking, and one by one the tables would walk up to him and say it was a fantastic show and and I've looked after a lot of people, and I remember that those traditions, they seem to have gone. They do a concert, they kind of go out and party, they don't necessarily go to dinner. So who else has it been in there? J-Lo? We haven't J-Lo and his bodyguard. That's all we got from Ron.
Shaq has been in. Shaq is funny. He walked in one day. I'm watching him walk through the door. He's with his wife. Okay, he was actually bigger than the door.
Yeah,
he had to duck to walk in. The man is such a gentleman. He walked in. He says hello to everybody. The kids run up to him. They want to take pictures, sign autographs. The poor guy's trying to come in and have a great dinner.
Yeah.
Okay? But he didn't forget where he came from.
Sure.
And when you see stars like that walk in, you say, wow, you know what? I admire that guy.
And it's kind of interesting because people kind of figure when you're famous that you deserve it. And it's actually at some point, everybody has a rough day and they want to go to dinner and they kind of want to be alone. And, and so I take my hat off to people when they do that. There's a lot of people that are really well known that they're kind of polite when they're in the restaurant, particularly in our industry, right? We see people and and our job is never to make a fuss and never to do anything and just to let them be normal people. It's like, famous people feeling normal and normal people feeling famous and getting that flip side right.
Exactly right.
So what does it look like for the next few weeks for you guys?
Well, you know what? Until Mr. de Blasio says we could serve inside and open the bars, we don't know. Everything's up in the air right now. So as well as you know.
Yep.
So look, for floor staff, it's teetering, but for bar staff, it's like same as it was the last 6 months.
Here's the problem. What I think it is, even at 25% dining area, okay, do you have that many people in the city right now?
Yeah.
I as you know, I play the stock market. I watch CNBC all day long.
Yep.
And
I'm worried about Jeff Bezos. He's looking like running out of money.
Jeff, oh my God, you know what? We're gonna have to do a fundraiser for him.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll do a little charity dinner.
Yeah, but they're showing Tyler Matheson says, I'm going to show you a picture of Rockefeller Center.
Right.
Okay, this was last Tuesday, 12 o'clock in the afternoon. 2 people. There's
Wow.
nobody in the city. Okay.
Yeah, wow.
As of this Tuesday, 35 states are barred from coming into New York City.
Wow.
So you don't have tourists coming in. You don't have business people coming in.
Yep.
Okay. How much can you?
No federal aid.
How much can you depend on your locals? You know what? They're not going to come in every single night.
And especially when half of them are furloughed or they're earning three-quarters of what they were doing.
So,
Exactly
so to actually answer your questions you asked Mike before about how long, and Mike's was very bleak. I think personally that, I think it will recover. I don't know how long it'll be. It won't be in the next 12 to 18 months.
I think it's going to be
it's
January
like
1st.
5 years before we fully recover. And I think when your statement says it'll never be the same, that is true to extent of service and staff.
Well, here's one of my problems. And the corporate world. I have 2 sons that work in brokerage. Okay, they both work out of the house.
Right.
Okay. Now you always think that people working out of the house are going to be doing less work. My son is on the computer 2 hours earlier than he's supposed to be.
Sure.
He's on 2 hours later than he's supposed to be. He's doing more work from at home. He's not traveling an hour each way. So the Wall Street proved something to themselves. Well, corporate America anyway.
Sure.
Corporate America proved you can work from at home. So now, once everything gets back to normal, how many of these businesses are going to be coming back into Manhattan?
It's a really good question because I was talking.
I happen to agree with you 100%, by the way.
It's a really good question because I was talking to some people about this, and something says into me in the financial industry that the people I know, there's something that always goes back to the corporations. Like if you're let's use a big company, if you're Goldman Sachs and your rent's $4 million a year and your balance sheet shows $10 billion in profit, your rent's not your issue, right?
True.
And so when you bring people back into the office, the reason you do it is because you can watch them and they're more productive because it's basically you're watching people walk the halls. So I'm not so sure that the financial district won't bring people back when it's legal because really your sons sound great. But how many people are sitting at home in their pajamas and really starting work half through the day because they're self-distracted? Everybody's locked in these tiny rooms, and it's New York City. No one came to New York City to live in this city because the beautiful apartments that are 400 years old and leaky pipes. They came here because of the community and the sensibility.
Well, personally, I think it's nicer going back to work. You have to get out of the house.
Right.
You have to mingle around with the other people you work with. See them face to face.
Sure.
I could talk to Ron 100 times a day, but when I see him face to face, it's a different thing.
I think this is the first time you guys have seen each other, right?
First time since we closed since the
brought you-
shutdown. We talk all the time. We talk at least every other week. We touch base with each other, whatever. How you doing? How's the family? The whole 9 yards. Have you heard anything yet? No, I haven't.
So I'll ask you two questions. I'll ask you both the same question. Mike, what would you tell your 20-year self right now?
What would I tell what?
Your 20-year-old self.
My 20-year-old self. Do not get into the restaurant business.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually came into the restaurant business when I was 19.
But
this is actually my 40th year in the
But
restaurant
I'll argue
business.
the fact that you say that, but at the same time, you fucking love it.
I do love it to a certain extent, but here's our thing in the restaurant business, and you know it as well as anybody else. You work in the corporate America, you're working 40 hours a week.
Sure.
You're off on weekends. Okay, you get paid vacation, you used to get medical benefits and stuff like that. In the restaurant business, our average week is 50, 60 hours.
Yeah.
So for every year you work, you actually put the time in that everybody else worked a year and a half.
Yeah, understood.
Okay, you really.
So what would you do? What industry would you have chosen if you know what you know now?
You know what?
Apart from making masks.
I do love Wall Street. I started out many years ago.
Yeah.
My first job that was for Merrill Lynch.
Wow.
Wasn't the department that I enjoyed or whatever.
Yep.
So I ended up leaving to come into the restaurant business. Well,
Understood.
to learn the business, I should say.
Sure.
I became a bartender. But the sad part is, or the good part anyway, I made more than one night than I used to make in a whole week. That's what kept me in the restaurant business.
But also, surely the people that you make happy, and they also show recognition to you. I know that when people that text you and all that kind of stuff, there's a lot more satisfaction in that because in the end, you can have all the money in the world, but what really is being rich is what you have, right?
I would agree with that.
Because when people say, "Are you rich?" and I go, "What do you mean? What are your definition of rich? Is your definition of rich? I got a whole bunch of shit that in the end, like richness is what you do, and
it's not how many toys you have."
And as you just said it before, right? So I would agree that you would say, no, the hospitality industry, we all say that because we're all kind of beaten up and we got limps and we got bruises and bumps and everything from it. But in saying that, you also said you're always happy, and you may not have been that way if you were walking the halls at Goldman Sachs.
You know what? That could be very, very true. I'd probably have a lot more money.
Yeah, well, wouldn't we all are in restaurants? Last call. What would you tell your 20-year-old self?
That's look. There's two jobs that I've had throughout the years that I've very much enjoyed. One is being on set. I
Yep.
just loved being on set. It was creative. I had to think. You had to always worry about budgets and time, and I enjoyed it.
As a
I really
cameraman,
enjoyed it
yep.
as a cameraman.
Yep.
And
You've done like
when
a
it
lot
was
of
in the
films,
film,
right? You've done like, what, 30 films?
31 films, and there were films when it was still 16 and 35 millimeters.
Yep.
So just that creative aspect of tungsten light and daylight and mixing and filters and exposure and
So what would you tell your
movement.
20-year-old self?
Look, do that. I also enjoy bartending. I
Yeah.
really do. I enjoy meeting the people. I enjoy talking. I like the novelty of meeting new and different people almost every night, and we do.
Yeah,
Right.
true.
True. But I do take the point of you're always working when other people are enjoying themselves. It does take its toll when you're,
So you're not going to give
Christmas,
yourself
New
any
Year's.
advice other than to see what you did? Sounds to me like you're
other
pretty content.
advice. Look, I enjoy both of them, so do what you enjoy. You don't have to work
Sure.
a day in your life if you love what you do.
It's a fair call, and you
So-
both pretty much are, right? So, like, I ask myself that all the time. I just find other shit to get myself in trouble in the same industry, right? So every time I get bored of cooking, I was like,
You like the
hey, I
abuse.
want to own a restaurant, then I lose money, and I'm like, how about I not own a restaurant? But I understand.
I'd love to own my own place.
Sure.
And to use that front of the house experience and to a greater monetary gain.
You guys are absolute fucking legends. Thank you so much. That was a tight 45 because I know you're both parked outside and you've got to get the hell out of here. Thank you so
I
much.
can still talk for another 37 seconds for sure.
That's it for this week, peeps. If you're enjoying the show, just go to iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or whatever podcast player you listen to, and ideally give us a 5-star rating, if we deserve it, of course. It will help other people like you discover us. If you want to find out more on what we get up to, or to suggest someone we should interview, let us know. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at The Raw Hospitality Show. The show is a Fabrica Collective production produced by Mark Fellows and Samantha Webb, music by Jindal.